So it's I don't know what specific type it is.
Okay.
I think it's kind of
Hello.
not a free-for-all, but like it changes a little bit each
Yep.
time.
All right.
depending
Yeah.
on who
All right. Can everyone hear me?
she loves it.
All right. Good evening. So I think what we're going to do is, at this point, we can call each board can call their meeting to order, and then we will move forward with the agenda. So I am going to start by calling the meeting of the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee to order on Wednesday, January 11th, 2023 at 6:39 p.m. And I think we'll go this direction.
We call the Wenham Finance Committee meeting to order at 6:39, January 11th, with 4 members out of 5 present.
And at 6:39, we'll call the Hamilton FinCom meeting to order with 3 out of 5 present.
And I will call the Hamilton Board of Selectmen to order with 3 members present.
Welcome, everyone. The agenda this evening is pretty straightforward. Basically, we're hoping to hear some budget highlights from from the 2 towns and from the district. So first up on the agenda, we have the town of Hamilton.
Good. Good evening. Thanks, everybody. We've been hard at work on our budget this year. The town of Hamilton will be town manager in the...
Joe, can I ask you to talk right into the mic because the acoustics in here are challenging? Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, we'll be doing a budget presentation for FY24 capital and budget to the Select Board and the FinCom on Saturday at 9 a.m. That will be a meeting that will be viewable on Zoom and HWCam. The highlights are that after a lot of work, we have balanced our budget projection for FY24, but with very little room to spare. I think we're right now showing about $12,000, a little bit more of unused capacity. Basically, we're right at the margin on what we can do. We have added a few made a few programmatic changes in the budget for FY24, and we were able to get that done. And we have a big capital program that is largely being funded from free cash and debt, so borrowing. So we're going to be right on the money at an operating budget. Where are we at? $37,629,176, about a 4.86% increase over last year.
Okay. I don't know if the Hamilton Select Board wants to run the questions, if you want to.
Meeting Saturday, so.
All right. Does anyone have questions? Is there discussion? Oh. I'm sorry, I didn't know. You don't have a question?
No, I was just letting Julia know where her seat was.
Excellent. I have a quick question about the pie chart. The education portion there, does that include the
Yes.
North Shore Tech?
It includes the tech, so it's about 62% of the total operating budget, including both the Hamilton Wenham and the Essex North Shore Tech School. So.
Jen?
Where in the revenues is the excess and deficiency refund?
It doesn't show up in our revenues. It shows up as a reduction in your guys' expense to us.
Okay, so it's,
So it's
Is it in
included in the school
expenditures?
expense line. Yeah.
thank you.
well, looks like everybody's good?
Just,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, the sharing of the mics is going to be fun. You said you're doing your full presentation on Saturday.
Yes, 9
Okay.
o'clock on
Okay.
Zoom.
Okay. What time? 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
All right, cool.
Yes.
And,
Pam.
so that, at that meeting, there'll be a vote at that meeting, or that's just a public?
In Hamilton, the budget is the town manager's recommendation. After the presentation, the select board and the FinCom may make comments and recommendations to us.
Recommendation.
We may massage it between now and town meeting, well, actually, between now and the closing of the warrant. But essentially, what we're projecting is what we're recommending the budget be for FY '24.
Just to add to that, we set up as kind of a workshop, basically, and we go over it, and if there's anything more detailed somebody wants to know on a line item, we go through it, and then sometimes there is some discussion about reductions or adds and that, but usually it's pretty benign.
Thank you. Okay. We ready to move on? Yeah, Eric?
Sorry, just, did you set your date for your warrant articles yet?
We opened the warrant at the last meeting, we'll close the warrant and at the first meeting in February. So, yeah, the warrant will be open for about a month, so.
Okay.
Julia?
Do you anticipate public support for this budget, or do you anticipate any pushback?
I mean, I guess we'll find out when we present it on Saturday. We tried really hard to create a budget that protects services as we know them, not to really develop or expand programming, and to try to make sure that we stayed under a Proposition 2.5 override. So, this isn't by any means an attempt to really go on a spending spree. We're really just doing the same things that we've been doing. A couple of minor changes, like I said. We're adding a deputy fire chief, but that is continuity planning. Our current chief just signed a new contract that will be his last. He's told us that he's retiring at the end of this contract, and we need to plan for the future of the department and the potential for ambulance service, town-run ambulance service in the future. So we're looking for a deputy chief that comes from someplace that has that experience so that we can get that off the ground. But that's an investment for the future and will be realized as a savings when the current chief retires, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. All right. Next up, Wenham. That goes to the select board, or not sure who's speaking to the Wenham budget.
You want to go over it, Steve?
I'm happy to if you guys want me to.
Want me to present where we are?
Yeah, the chart, yes, whatever.
Okay. So briefly, Wenham, as we sit this evening, is essentially at a break-even budget. We have 2 to 3 more meetings to settle the budget, including the capital. The school budget represents 52% of our budget as we stand, which is actually about 1.5 points less than our current fiscal year. We do not have our free cash number finalized yet, but that will come in the next few weeks so we can address capital. The primary drivers are the schools, public safety, general government, library, and group insurance, and so on. So we anticipate that we will probably go forward with a balanced budget, even with some departments still to be finalized and discussed.
Okay.
So the Wenham Select Board opened their warrant, last night, and have it scheduled to close on the 7th of February. So we'll have one meeting on the 24th of January, and would expect to do our final article recommendations on the 7th, and then close.
Okay.
Peter?
Are there questions? I'm just going to ask the same question that I asked to Hamilton about the percent that you have, the 52% of the budget is education. That includes the North Shore Essex Tech.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It doesn't show in this particular, but yes, it does.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's labeled
I think there's
education, so that it's included.
17 students this year? Or is it 14? I think it's 17. There's more students this year.
Yeah.
It's-
All right.
And you can probably anticipate the same as last year from what,
14?
14 total.
Yeah.
I think it was 8 and 6, if I remember correctly, but they took 14 total last year, and they're tracking to be on the same, kind of the same projections.
Other people have questions for Wenham?
Nope, I live there.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Next up is the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District budget highlights. I think Vinny's going to show us a couple of slides.
Needs to be out front.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. We're obviously here for our second quintuple board meeting to further review all of our FY24 budgets. So what has the school district, what actions has the school district taken since our prior quintuple board meeting? Eric, I, and the leadership team all really took into consideration all of your comments last meeting. We really understand the difficulties that both towns are facing, and hopefully after you see this brief presentation, you can see that we really tried to incorporate that difficulties that we know you guys are facing. So what Eric and I did was met with all of the building principals and department heads, again, for another round of staffing and expense reviews. At one of the school committee meetings, Eric presented a class size analysis where we reviewed our teacher-to-student ratios. I also outlined the timetable for the Cutler feasibility expenses, and we also updated some of our revenue strategies that I'm going to briefly discuss in a moment. So right here, I presented the changes from our initial budget that we presented to you at the last board meeting. Overall, our tentative budget incorporates a reduction of $850,000 compared to the last presentation we gave you. That ultimately means a reduction from the previous meeting of $570,000 for Wenham, and $570,000 for Hamilton, and $290,000 for Wenham. So we kind of broke this out into three sections when we review our budget. The first is obviously our operating section. This is broken out by DAC, or kind of school in location. From our prior meeting, from our meetings that Eric and I had, we were actually able to further reduce our overall FTEs by approximately 4.4. In addition to those reductions, combined with some expense reductions, in total, we were able to bring down our overall operating ask by $446,000 from that initial budget we presented to you, I believe it was in December. Comparing that year over year, so now I'm comparing it to our FY23 final, the school district is actually reducing our overall FTEs by 11.7 in total. That represents a reduction of approximately 4% of our overall staffing. This came with a lot of tough decisions. It came with a lot of meetings between the department heads and rearranging a lot of our staffing. But with this reduction, we are still confident that we'll be able to deliver a high-quality education that the students from both communities deserve. And on top of that, though, we are still realizing an increase of approximately $1.3 million which represents a 3.12% increase to our operating budget. Next, we look at our debt service budget. From the initial presentation we gave to you in December, we requested a debt service budget of just over $800,000. Over the past 2 months, we performed a kind of timetable for the Cutler feasibility study, and what we realized is these expenses we're gonna start incurring them next year, but we actually won't have to pull the ban out until January of 2024. Therefore, the first pay down or the first interest payment won't be due until January of 2025. Therefore, we're able to confidently remove the whole Cutler feasibility projected expense for FY24, further reducing our 24 budget request by $245,000. Third, we took another look at our offsets and revenues. Through this review, we were able to update 3 numbers. We had a modest increase to our preschool tuition. This relates to an update to our actual enrollment for FY23 that we're carrying forward into FY24. In addition, we held, I believe, 3 more meetings with our student services director, where all 3 of us went through our circuit breaker claim that we have to submit annually. Through those updated numbers and through the numbers that the state has given us based on what percentage they're going to reimburse us, we're confident that we can increase our circuit breaker offset projected amount by an additional $67,000 on top of what we initially presented to you in December. In addition, we've updated our Chapter 70 money, and here we kind of changed the way our strategy is in terms of how we budget for Chapter 70. So historically, when the school district builds their budget around Chapter 70, we base the number off the prior year actuals. So in reality here, building the 24 budget, we set it equal to what we actually received in 22. Again, based on your comments and based on the difficulties we know both communities are facing, we've decided to change that strategy and base it off what we're actually projected to receive in FY23. Therefore, we're realizing an additional $98,000 in revenue to help further reduce the assessment to the towns. So in total, compared to the prior presentation we gave you, we're increasing our revenue projections by roughly $170,000. So in total, what does that mean year over year? The school district currently at our tentative budget, our net assessment combined taking operating and debt service is coming in at just above 3% at 3.02. Our operating budget is at a flat 3%, with our debt service coming in at 4.35. This translates into a 4.33% increase to Hamilton, or just under $1 million, and a 0.55% increase to Wenham at roughly $65,000. I believe that is it. Thank you for your time. I thought I was going to hand it off to another town for a presentation, but I think that concludes all of our presentations.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll let Vinny get settled, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Madam Chair, if I may just make a kind of a comment, not
Please.
really a question. I'd just like to thank the school administration, the school committee, the Wenham Board of Selectmen, Wenham FinCom. During this process this year, we've had much more back and forth in meetings to talk about our needs and our wants, and it's been a great process. It's kind of been evolving over the years, and I think we got to a point now where we're really working collaboratively, and I think that's why we probably don't have too many questions and back and forth tonight with the budget, because we've worked really hard kind of behind the scenes and up until this point to get it to a point where it's kind of everyone's going to hurt a little bit, but we've kind of spread it around so that it's not as severe as it has been in past years, and we really appreciate that from the Hamiltons. I just want to say thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you. And I would echo that it's nice to be in, none of this so far feels like a surprise. No one's presenting something that shocks anyone else, and that's due to increased and positive communication.
Hey, Dana.
Yes.
I remember when we were working on Eric's 3-year strategic plan, and one of the first meetings we had, you guys thought that it was, you felt like it was the school board against the select boards or the FinComs. And I think it's a lot different now. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think we've really come a long way. I think there's a lot of really good communication.
Just got to talk, that's all.
Yeah, I think also that this process, we certainly need to push it ahead next year too, because as we saw in the 5 chairs meeting, that next year will bring as many or more challenges. So I think this forum, both the 5 chairs and the quintuple meetings, have worked out very well. I'd like to continue into next year with them.
Great. Are there other questions on the budget that was, or the budget highlights that were presented? It is a quiet room.
So-
On the agenda, it said anticipated close 8:30. If you close it in like the next minute,
That's one
it'll
of
be
those
30
under
minutes.
promise, over perform, right? Over deliver.
We joked about that at the 5 chairs meeting. We didn't think we'd be there at 8:30, so.
Yeah. And I, to your earlier point, I think that some of that is just a holdover, that like historically that would have been inaccurate, or could have been inaccurate, and we've done a good job. And, you know, if y'all want to stay till 8:30, we can.
I just want to add one thing. So, first of all, I apologize for being late. But I think this is a testament to Dana and Eric's leadership. And I think this is incredibly valuable for the community to see all of us coming together and not working in silos and not just sort of working in our own individual departments. So I do think it's incredibly valuable, even if no one's watching, because no one, let's be real, no one's watching this. But
All the people that would be
whoever's
watching are
watching,
actually
hello. But I do think that it speaks to the culture of transparency and communication that Eric and Dana have cultivated, and I'm glad that you spoke to that. So I think that it's an important piece of the puzzle.
Thank you. Of course.
I think it's important to know for anybody who might be watching or may watch that we're still working. You know, we still have meetings set up, we still have conversations to have, and I appreciate the openness and the willingness to be able to you know, pick up the phone and say, hey, where are you at here, or how does this fit? So I think the process up to date has been great, and I think it's important for the public to know that we're all still kind of working towards finalizing our budget. So I think once we get to February-ish, we'll be in a pretty good shape to present 3 solid budgets to the public and you know, in unison. So I appreciate that, and thank you for everybody's work. I really appreciate the time that people have taken, both in the meetings and outside of the meetings.
And I did hear Anna mentioning again that there is an opportunity for public hearing, which I'm hoping someone will just tell me off the top of their head when that is.
Again, echo everyone's feedback, and I'm gratified that we have, you know, there's no override in either community, which is always this big looming dragon, right? Especially in Hamilton, which, you know, the population shift alone is problematic in some ways. There's really not much we can do. I think that's something to pay attention to, but it's really nice that neither town's going to be looking at an override, it sounds like, right? That's true. So, I mean, currently, we're not going to jinx it. No one's
Anna, just.
No, it won't happen. What I wanted to say is the school committee is hosting 2 official public hearings. So to Eric's point, there is still conversation. If anyone in the public would like to opine on the proposed budgets, the first date is January 19th. The second date is the day that we will vote on the budget, which is February 9th. So those are 2 days. If you would like to speak, those would be your chance.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, one question. And thanks for mentioning those dates, because I think it's excellent that we're going out to the public. Would those presentations include any visibility on the school project that's coming down the pike? Is that part of the conversation, and/or at what point might we want to start to educate the public as to what the new school looks like? And we've talked about this off and on, but is that in the summertime? What are you thinking, Eric?
Sure. As most people here may know, the school department was fast-tracked into the feasibility study. Because of the work with the towns and the schools, we successfully met all of the milestones of the process earlier than expected. So we and another community were the only 2 out of the 17 initially invited to move forward 3 months earlier. Essentially what we did last school committee meeting, was I got authorization to sign the agreement with the state to move into feasibility. So that's been sent to the state, and all of the required documents they needed for that. That will open up the process of hiring an OPM designer, and that takes about 3-ish months. And then the process of feasibility is anywhere from a year to 18 months. So realistically, we're using monies that we have already approved, the 1.25 million, so we won't have to go to the public during town meeting. I do anticipate at least dropping a public report during that meeting, because as you know, the other project, the Fields project, will be coming forward in April, and that has to be voted in time to hit the warrant as well. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll do that, and we'll continue to send out information related. We a week ago had the first school, athletic improvement project building committee meeting. So the actual building committee has met now, and they will take over the process of managing the project and hiring an OPM as well to manage that project. So there are a lot of irons in the fire right now.
So what do you think about the timing of the vote by the town to approve the new school? Is it April 24, summer of 24? What do you
Probably looking at 25, 26, depending on how long the feasibility study goes. So if you look at the feasibility study,
yeah,
from when we get accepted, I'm assuming sometime in the next couple of weeks, add on 18 months from there,
okay,
and then we'll have to move forward with the actual first ask. So you're probably looking at 25, 26 before
yeah, okay,
a financial ask is made to the communities.
Right.
But we'll continue to educate the public, and we do have 2 separate websites for each project built, where we're keeping minutes, we're keeping project updates and things like that, so we can continue to share that.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be real important to sort of build support for the school well in advance of when you need the vote.
Sure.
So
I agree.
And we'll talk about it. One other point, I think it was a select board meeting before Christmas. The Fields Project Group came in to address the Patton Homestead money.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of kicked that around. But part of that conversation, I think I picked up on the fact that the $13 million project for the fields might go up to $15 million. And that caught us a little bit by surprise, but I'm wondering what's the latest scoop on that. And I did give them a little feedback that it was only 2 months prior that we said it was a $13 million project.
Yeah, we've been running between 13 and 15, depending on what the requirements are. Some of the things that, when you break ground on a project like that, ADA compliance becomes an issue. So we're trying to get some answers out of Gail, who's doing our current estimating work, to really determine like what has to happen in this project. So there are some things that may not be included in the final project, only because of the reality of the numbers.
Right.
So we've been running between 13 and 15 million, and as you know, we're working within this current budget, anticipating to make a request to the communities to put $1.6 million into our stabilization fund.
Right.
Which will
right.
specifically go to that.
Yeah.
2 applications were made to the CPCs in each community,
Right.
Which could generate a sum of money or not, depending on how they
Yeah.
decide to move forward. And then the fundraising committee has been separated from the building committee, and they are specifically working on raising funds in anticipation of at least, a $2 million range, so.
Yeah. So what I'm anticipating is, okay, we fast forward to town meeting. There's an article on there about the fields. So what's the budget? I think we just need to provide a scope of, here's what we're planning to do.
Right. Right, and that's
and-
what we'll do that once we get the final documents from
Yeah.
Gail. We requested final documents. As you know, we're at 75% in that project design, so
Right.
we'll request the final documents, get cleaner numbers, and then
Yeah.
move forward. And then it'll be a not to exceed ask,
Right.
with the understanding that there is fundraising going on. We're anticipating stabilization fund being funded. We're anticipating possibility of fundraising and the possibility of CPC funds,
Yeah.
and then add in the patent homestead funds. If we can get the match on that from
Right.
Wyndham,
Right.
then that
Right.
knocks the price tag down fairly substantially.
So one final question on the Fields project. It's more than a financial situation. There's an element of safety and health relative to the type of surfaces we use. And I believe there was a conversation at the Wenham Board of Health within the last month on that subject. So there needs to be a sort of a financial conversation, but there also needs to be a sort of a qualitative conversation. Here's what we're planning to do, and oh, by the way, here's our response to the sort of health issues that some residents might be raising around the services, So that's another conversation point that probably needs to be part of the ask. So
Right. On our website, there's currently an FAQ that answers a lot of those questions. We kind of add to it each time we've had it. So we met with the Board of Health.
Yeah.
At their request, there was a resident who raised some questions. We went, answered those questions, and seemed to be fine so far. We still have to get permitting from Concom on a second portion of the project.
Right.
And then we'll have to hit the Hamilton Planning Board as well to finalize everything and move forward. So there's still a number of boxes to check. So,
Yeah,
but any of those questions that come up, we'll do. My plan is to do in early March a public forum.
Yeah.
And just invite whoever wants to come and just get the word out to wherever
Excellent.
I can, so that
Yeah.
we can at least answer questions, help people understand it, and people who are interested can come and learn more about the project
Yeah,
as well.
excellent.
So probably a month before town meeting,
Yeah.
roughly.
That would be great. All right. Thanks, Eric, as usual. Thanks.
Okay. There's nothing further, or there is? Yes? No? Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a question, if I may. I recall from the last time we got together, it was mentioned there are 12, or were 12, unfilled positions. Given what we heard earlier, is that number now 8? Or how do those 4 savings that you mentioned between the last meeting and this meeting reflected in the 12 open positions? And lastly, on top of that, if you just comment on how the school is managing with those positions unfilled?
Right. So the majority of our positions are filled now. We have a couple of positions like cafeteria workers. We just recently filled them within the last two weeks, right? Yeah. And things that remain open are, we still need a crossing guard. If somebody wants to volunteer, we need a crossing guard. But most of the positions were filled, and those that kind of dragged on, if you will, that we couldn't fill, we combined. So, for example, one of the things we did in 2 different schools, we took 3 of our teaching assistant positions, combined them together, and it was easier for us to hire 1 professional staff member, a special ed teacher, in trade for that, so they could still meet the needs of the kids and meet the requirements of the student IEPs. So we did that in 2 different buildings because we just kind of waited long enough to try and fill the positions, and we weren't able to do it. That caused some reshuffling of staffing within our building, so we had to move some people around to better meet some of the needs of our kids. And then any positions that were not filled for more than last year and this year were cut. So one of the positions that was cut was an out-of-district coordinator for out-of-district placements. That was a .6 position that we cut because we couldn't, for 2 years, we couldn't get anybody to even apply. So that was one of those cuts reflected in there. So there's also some staff reductions within our, as Vinnie mentioned, we did class size reporting, we did a class size analysis across the district, and we looked at where we had some excesses. So there are actually 2 full-time positions being cut from the high school, 1 full-time position being cut from the middle school, above and beyond all the other adjustments that we made. So it's a combination of positions that were unfilled or unused, positions that we felt were excess, if you will, and then combinations of positions to meet our needs.
Thank you. And those are largely filled now, you said?
Yes, yes. But we're always looking for cafeteria workers and crossing guards and bus drivers. Yes, if you can drive a bus, we could use them.
Okay. All right, at this point, it looks like we're ready to start adjourning the various boards. I don't know how we want to go around about this. All right.
I'll
looks like-
start.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to adjourn the Hamilton FinCom?
So moved. Second.
All right. Everyone. So FinCom at Hamilton is adjourned. Thank you.
I'll accept the motion for the Hamilton Select Board to adjourn. All right, all those in favor? All right, we're adjourned, thank you.
All right.
I make a motion for the Wenham Select Board to close this meeting. Unanimous.
Make a motion to adjourn the Wenham Finance Committee. You hear a motion? Motion made, seconded? All those in favor? All right, thank you.
All right, do I have a motion? All those in favor of adjourning? And that is unanimous, the members present, and we are adjourned.